A shocker. The Los Angeles Chargers have released one of their greatest players in franchise history. Former first-round pick and 5-time Pro Bowler Joey Bosa has been released. Joey Bosa has been cut. That saves the Chargers $25+ million to their cap this season. But the question is not about the Chargers. The question is about what is the future and what does it hold for Joey Bosa? Will he join his brother in San Francisco? Will he join a contender and boost their pass rush? Will a Joey Bosa addition allow a team to take their talents to the Super Bowl? Will Joey Bosa chase the cash? Or will he chase the ring? That's the question. We're going to dive into the top landing spots for one of the best pass rushers over the last 7 or 8 years in the NFL, Joey Bosa. So make sure to join me live in the comments. Let me know what you guys think of Joey Bosa being cut by the Chargers. Where do you think he's going to land? What spot do you think is your favorite for Joey Bosa? Let's get started by breaking down the player that is Joey Bosa. Bosa is currently 29 years old, born in July, so he'll be 30 once 2025 kicks off. Bosa is coming off a season in which he played 14 games and had 5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. Despite those statistics, he had 13 quarterback hits and was still named to a Pro Bowl this year, his 5th of his career. The other 4 were during the span of 2017 through 2021, where he was a regular 10+ sack man and one of the most dominant pass rushers in football, featuring exquisite speed to power and pop off the football to get to quarterbacks. Now, the question is, former Rookie of the Year, does he still have anything left in the tank? Is he still the player he used to be? Or is he just a player that has been injured, and when he's been on the field, he's still that player that we know and love? The problem has been injuries. The problem has been inspiration. The problem has been he hasn't been on the best team most of the time. This past year, the Chargers made their way back to the playoffs. They made their way back to where they wanted to be. And I feel like Joey Bosa probably wants more taste of the playoffs. So I kind of leaned into the teams that I feel are going to be competitive this year. The teams that I feel are going to be in the running for a playoff spot. But I did try to sneak a couple teams in there that will have the money to pay Joey Bosa what he wants. So let's start off the landing spots for Joey Bosa with the most obvious team for Joey Bosa, and that is the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think we can really talk about Joey Bosa going anywhere before we talk about Joey Bosa joining his brother Nick in San Francisco. That's the most obvious place for him to be. That's the most obvious place for him to go. And that is probably where he will land. If we're being honest, we've seen Joey Bosa go to San Francisco 49er playoff games in past seasons where he's on the Chargers and he's wearing 49er gear on the sidelines rooting for his brother. He's obviously very close with his brother Nick, and he also has other significant ties to this scheme and this team. So Gus Bradley, a former coach of Joey Bosa, was also brought into this team, San Francisco, to work as an advisor, a defensive advisor for Robert Saleh. A Robert Saleh-based scheme that Joey Bosa saw his best years in. Just like his brother Nick, they were both tailor-made to play in this type of defense. This pin your ears back, get to the quarterback style of defense. Use your power, use your whole pass rushing bag to just rip apart offensive lines and dominate on a weekly basis, right? So you look back, it's actually surprising to look back at it that this was a guy that was playing in 2016. It feels like Bosa has not been in the league that long. I guess you kind of like cross the wires between him and his brother because his brother was drafted in 2019. But, when you go back and look, like Gus Bradley was their defensive coordinator in 2017, where he had a breakout season in year 2. He had 12 and a half sacks, which was his career high and his first Pro Bowl season of his career. The Chargers, they made the playoffs in 2018. They lost in the divisional round to my Patriots in 2018. Gus Bradley was also the defensive coordinator that season for the Chargers as well. So the Gus Bradley tie is also one that you've got to discuss on top of the obvious Nick Bosa tie. And the Niners need a pass rusher. It's not like, they've got a stacked defensive line and they can do without Joey Bosa. No, they could do with Joey Bosa. They could actually, it's probably worth it to get Joey Bosa. And the thing that's so worth it for them is that he's probably not going to have to cost a ton. Because Bosa's a guy that, like I said, has been injured regularly over the last 3 seasons. He played 5 games in 2022. He played 9 games in 2023. He played 14 games in 2024. So at least it's escalating, right? It's getting better. But his health is getting a little bit more functional for teams. But that production has dropped off. He hasn't had a 10-sack season since 2021, right? This past year, he had 5. The year before, he had 6.5. But when he's been on the field over these last 3 years, he's mostly been a good player. I wouldn't call him great. I wouldn't call him game-changing. I wouldn't put him in the top 20 pass rushers in football right now. But if Joey Bosa went to San Francisco, was opposite his brother, and all of a sudden put up 10 sacks and looked like a top 20 pass rusher again in the NFL, yeah, I wouldn't be that shocked at all. I would, in fact, probably would expect it, right? There's something about being alongside your brother, being in the scheme that you're most familiar with and kind of popularized your game and allowed you to shine at the NFL level. And that coupled together would be something that could rejuvenate his career. Because he's only going to be 30 years old. He's not super old. And it's not like he has really had a ton of major killer injuries. Like, he doesn't have a ton of lower body injuries, not a ton of really bad, like, wear and tear. So it's kind of just been missed games here, missed games there. So for Joey Bosa, I think the most obvious spot is San Francisco. It's the one everyone's going to talk about, as they should. It makes the most sense. I mean, he's wearing Niner gear every year when he's watching his brother. I mean, how much more obvious can you get? John Lynch loves his pass rushers. Shanahan loves to build a defensive line. Nick Bosa is going to be able to convince his brother to come there. And of course, he has his old favorite defensive coordinator, Gus Bradley. It really doesn't get any easier to recruit a player. Let's be honest. Let's get to the comments before we get to the next team on the list, just because I want to hopefully get some more people in the chat. 100 says, we'll gladly take him in Washington. He's coming home to Miami, says Big Mitch. I love your name, Big Mitch. Shout out to you, man. He's coming home to Miami. I don't know about that, man. We'll see, though. I don't think Miami really needs a pass rusher. They just extended Bradley Chubb, right? They just gave him some more money. Chop Robinson looked real good as a rookie last year, and Jalen Phillips is still there, although injured, but still. Niners doing nothing next year, says Frisky, unless they get a real wide receiver 1. Well, I would consider Brandon Ayuk a wide receiver 1. I'd also consider George Kittle arguably the best tight end in football, and I'd consider Christian McCaffrey the best receiving back in football. I don't know if that's a number 1, though. Juwan Jennings is darn good, too. Christian says Bosa signed a Niner deal right now. He just texted me. He's a Laker. Okay. Falcons are possible. I think the thing that would really deter Joey from signing with Atlanta is just the quarterback and the potential competition, like the potential appeal of being a contender. I just don't think there's a lot of proven ground there from the coach or the quarterback to appeal to a veteran player that's turning 30 years old that probably wants to win. So Atlanta does need a pass rusher, and they could probably throw some money at Joey Bosa and try, but I don't necessarily feel like he would pick them over some of the other teams. What's your thoughts on Bosa to the Ravens? So I almost put Bosa to the Ravens on my list, and I'm going to get to my second team in a moment here, guys. I didn't, though. And the reason I didn't is because he just played for the Chargers. And in his first year under a very similar Baltimore-like scheme, right? The Chargers defensive coordinator coming from Michigan with Jim Harbaugh, where essentially they stole Mike Macdonald from, who runs the same sort of defense. Mike Macdonald's defense has been Baltimore's defense the last 3 years. Then they passed it down to their last defensive coordinator, right? Zach Orr, right? So, and Bosa being that he wasn't like extremely successful in that system, although I feel like the Ravens could use him, maybe they'll kick the tires on him. I don't think they'd spend a ton of money on him because of the injuries and things like that. I don't think that they typically spend a lot of money on the edge position, as we've seen, but they do like their veterans. I will say that they like guys like Kyle Van Noy, in the past Justin Houston. I just feel like the scheme isn't ideal for him. That's just my opinion, though, with the Ravens. And I think the Ravens might view it the same way. Let's talk about the next team on the list. That's the Dallas Cowboys. I'm throwing the Dallas Cowboys out there. And the reason I like Dallas is I like the scheme fit for Joey Bosa. I like him in a Matt Eberflus defense. Matt Eberflus likes to generate his pressure using 4 guys. He's not much of a blitzer, and they like to play zone coverage behind it. I think that's what they're going to do in Dallas. DeMarcus Lawrence is a free agent, right? So DeMarcus Lawrence, being that he might leave, most likely he probably will. They brought back Odighizuwa, so they've already shown an emphasis that they want defensive linemen on this team. They want to spend on defensive linemen. Micah Parsons is there, but he needs a running mate. He needs a guy on the other side that can benefit from Parsons being doubled and Parsons taking the attention. And yeah, Parsons has got to deal with his own contract, and Jerry's got to deal with that. But I feel like because Joey is probably going to get a 1 or 2 year deal, Dallas could definitely be in the running. I mean, who doesn't want to play for the Cowboys? You know, it's America's team. It's the star. It's everything about it. You become a star when you play for the Cowboys, right? And I feel like that scheme, just like Gus Bradley's scheme, just like the Niners scheme, he fits that defense very well. And I feel like that appeals to him. I think that playing with Micah Parsons would appeal to him. Playing with Dallas would appeal to him. They have Dak Prescott. They have CeeDee Lamb. They've got a chance to make the playoffs. There's enough there. And they also loved him coming out of the draft, apparently. So that's also there as well. I mean, most people did, but I'm just throwing that out there. Okay. So not a huge chance of that happening, but I feel like it's one of the teams I wanted to mention. All right. The next team that I think is more likely is the Green Bay Packers. I think the Packers also in this same lane of their defensive coordinator being a former position coach of the 49ers under Robert Saleh, similar defense where Joey Bosa has played his best football. The Packers do also need a pass rusher big time. At late last season, it became evident. Did you guys watch that Vikings game in the regular season where they could not even touch Sam Darnold? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about, right? So they have Rashawn Gary, who's a beast. They have Clark in the inside. Wyatt's pretty good in the inside. But they kind of need that second pass rusher, right? And to me, like Joey Bosa right now in his career right now, he's like a really good 2, in my opinion, ideally. Right? So you bring him in on the other side of Rashawn Gary in a defense that he'll be pretty well suited for. And I feel like you could even rotate him with Lucas Van Ness, keep him fresh, not have him play on every single rundown, every single early down, have Van Ness take on those snaps because he's really good against the run and keep Joey Bosa fresh. You know, the Packers, they used to be a team that would go after these older veteran pass rushers. You can never have a good enough pass rush. The one that I always think of is that Julius Peppers type move that they could make. Like, this is kind of that aging veteran that's maybe a little bit past his peak, but he's had some injured seasons. That could be the type of player the Packers are missing. Like, they're too into always drafting everything. Eventually, they need to sign somebody to put them over the top. I think they could do that at wide receiver. I think pass rush is another area they could utilize. Corner is another area. But to me, Packers they're pretty much a consistent playoff threat. They're a very popular franchise. They're a team that's iconic. There's no reason why you wouldn't want to play for the Packers necessarily, other than maybe going to Wisconsin. But other than that, I feel like, it's a good spot for him, good defensive scheme for him, definitely a need there. So everything works for me across the board with the Packers. Next up, this one's actually up on the list. The Cincinnati Bengals. The reason the Bengals are so high on the list, in my opinion, is because Joey Bosa attended the University of Ohio State, the Ohio State University. So, that being said, I'm not sure if Joey Bosa was a Bengals fan necessarily, but there's probably some appeal to going back home in one shape or form, back to his college of Ohio State. So, also that having Joe Burrow there is also a factor. The fact that the Bengals defense is trash and they need a pass rush desperately, that's a factor. They need a guy on the other side of Trey Hendrickson who led the NFL in sacks, who dominated the league by himself. Imagine if he had a guy on the other side. And we recently just heard that Sam Hubbard retired. Is it a coincidence that a man from Ohio State, Sam Hubbard, retires on the same day that Joey Bosa, a legend of the Ohio State, becomes a free agent and can go to Cincinnati? Is it a coincidence? I'll ask you that question. I'll leave it open for you guys to determine. But I feel like if he doesn't go to San Francisco, Cincinnati would be very high on my odds list because it's got the quarterback. They've got Jamar Chase. They've proven they can go to the Super Bowl. They're a fun team to play for, and it's back in Ohio. So Cincinnati would be very, very high on my list. I'm yelling at you, bro. Next, we got the Arizona Cardinals. The reason I got the Cardinals here is because they've got a lot of money, and they've got arguably the biggest edge need in the NFL. Jonathan Gannon could use a pass rusher for his defense. What made his Eagles defense so successful was that great four-man rush. Bring in a veteran like Joey Bosa. Arizona, if Bosa wants to go back with that more like that LA laid-back style, I feel like Arizona could be a place for him. He'd probably get paid a lot more in Arizona than the other teams. Like, let's just say, okay, San Francisco offers one contract. I can play with my brother. I can play under Kyle Shanahan. I can play with my favorite defensive coordinator, Gus Bradley, and Robert Saleh. Or I could play for Arizona. I like Arizona. They got Kyler, Marvin Harrison Jr. There's some appealing elements there. The offense could be good. I could help put this defense over the top. But they're going to give me this big-time contract, right? They're going to give me a lot of money. So that's where Arizona could come in, because Arizona's like top 5 in cap space. They got a ton of money. And it's still sort of it's a similar LA type vibe. So I feel like Joey Bosa, maybe Arizona. I threw that out there because they desperately need a pass rusher. They're kind of like Atlanta. I think a little bit more enticing than Atlanta. Okay. Who am I missing? Who's the final team that I have not talked about? And then we're going to open it up to the chat, and we're going to talk about all the ones you guys are bringing up, and I'll go through why or why not I think that could fit. Okay. The Buffalo Bills are the final team that I thought of as a landing spot. And the reason why, or not the final team, I think I actually have one more, but the Buffalo Bills were one of the first teams I thought about because they need a defensive playmaker, a pass rusher that can put them over the top defensively. It feels like every single playoffs, they let down Josh Allen. Every single big game, specifically against the Chiefs, they let down Josh Allen. Joey Bosa's had some success against the Chiefs. Just going to throw that out there. If you want to beat the Chiefs, bring in some Joey Bosa. But also on top of that, you've got a team that has Josh Allen. You got a team that has the MVP, a team that was in the AFC Championship, a team that, yes, doesn't have a lot of cap right now, but they could make some moves. They could even go of Von Miller, potentially replace him with Joey Bosa. they could potentially manipulate some cap from different players and open up enough space to bring in Joey Bosa. It felt like their defensive line in the biggest games last year was just a little underwhelming, right? Like Greg Rousseau's a good player. Ed Oliver's a good player. They don't have a great player, right? So if you don't have a great player, if you don't have an absolute stud, if they're not going to land Myles Garrett, they should go after another good player like Joey Bosa, where we can put him alongside on the opposite side of Greg Rousseau, right? We can have him rotate with Epinesa, rotate with Von Miller. Like he'll be in rotation of our pass rush. And that will help us win games in the fourth quarter. That will help us win playoff games. That will help us close games out. Those are the type of additions the Bills need to think about, because every single time they get to the playoffs, man, every single time they're let down by their defense. So they should continue to look at this pass rush and try to add some players and pieces to it. It's pretty simple, man. And probably it wouldn't cost too much, just because like the Bills would get a discount because they're the Bills, because they're one of the most competitive, one of the best teams in football with one of the best quarterbacks. And you're really thinking about it. Would the Chiefs offer Bosa? Would he even want to go to the Chiefs, being that he's a rival for so many years? Probably not. Could they maybe look at him? Potentially. I mean, just because they don't really have a great pass rusher on the opposite side of George Karlaftis, that is a complete question mark for them. The Ravens, we talked about, like another contender in the AFC. We talked about them where it's like, I just don't really love the scheme fit. One of the teams that I also think is really interesting is the Washington Commanders. The Commanders are interesting because they have a lot of cap space. They made the NFC Championship game. One of their biggest needs on their roster is edge rusher. Jonathan Allen might be cut. That's going to further hurt their pass rush. Dante Fowler is a free agent, and he could walk and leave and get more money elsewhere. And the best way that Joey Bosa could work is really 1 or 2 year deal, prove it contract. You've been injured a lot, but you're a 5-time Pro Bowler. We respect your game. You're a former defensive rookie of the year. We know what you've been. We know what you've done. You've been a top 5 edge rusher in the sport before. Dan Quinn loves his pass rushers. Dan Quinn could convince him. He's a very good players coach, very good at getting the most out of pass rushers as well, right? Look at his lineage. Look at his ability to coach defensive lines. He would also fit the same pedigree as Robert Saleh, the same pedigree as Gus Bradley. He comes from that same tree. So that would also work. And I feel like Bosa would instantly be probably their best edge rusher. You know, I like Dorrance Armstrong, but pure pass rushing ability when they're healthy, when they're available, I still think Joey Bosa is the better player there. So that could be a boost that the Commanders did not have last year, that they could convince themselves, hey, if we can go out and get Joey Bosa, that could take us one step further, one step closer to where we want to go. Because the thing with the Commanders is they were a little bit of a Cinderella story. So in order for them to get back to where they were and even beyond that, they need to significantly improve their roster. And they need to be bold about it, like Deebo Samuel, Joey Bosa being another one of those guys. And Bosa uniquely being a guy that has not won a lot in his career. So as a veteran player, he's very hungry to win. He's not fat and happy, right? He's ready to roll. He's ready to go. Let's look at the chat. The Bears. The Bears are certainly an option because they don't have a great pass rusher on the other side of Sweat. So I think that's certainly an option. I don't know exactly how ideal he would be for the Dennis Allen defense. I don't think he's really ever played under a defense like that before. I guess Brandon Staley's would have some similarities, but not a lot. So like to me, I feel like that's the projection. I'm not sure. I just feel like with Chicago being one of those teams, the need is there. Chicago has the money, but it feels like Chicago's putting an emphasis on their offensive line, on the offense in general. And I just feel like Bosa will have better options, like more appealing options for him. Bro, stop spamming the chat. He's asking about the Giants. I don't see the Giants just because I don't see why Joey Bosa at 30 years old, unless he gets a bag, would decide to go to the Giants. Also on top of that, the Giants have so many needs and they're not edge rusher. Like they have Burns and they have Thibodeau. And if they want, they can bring back Ojulari. I don't think their pass rush is the problem. They have Dexter Lawrence. They need money to spend on corners, money to spend on safeties, money to spend on offensive linemen, money to spend on quarterback. I don't think Joey Bosa is need on the Giants. He's not needed on the Giants. That's a team that's the position they have out of everything, right? The Falcons, I think the need is there. I don't think that the desire from Bosa's end would be there personally. The Niners is obvious. The Niners is the number one team. The Niners is the odds. If I was betting, it would be the Niners, 100%. The Bucks are interesting. I'm not sure how he'd fit with Todd Bowles. That's one thing that I couldn't really quite get myself to my head wrapped around it, because Bowles likes to blitz a lot. Bosa's never been in a defense like that before. And typically his edge rushers stand up a lot more. I always feel like Joey has been better with his hand in the dirt personally. Like, I feel like he's more of like a 4-3 style end, if you know what I'm saying, rather than like a 3-4 outside linebacker, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? And typically the Bucks, I think there's other edge rushers out there that the Bucks might go for. I just don't know if Joey is the right guy. I feel like Joey is more inclined to play for a defense like the Niners, a defense like the Cowboys, a defense like the Packers, that style of defense. That's just I could be totally wrong. Denver, I don't think so, because I think they like their pass rushers. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they like their pass rushers. Washington likes their washed-up defenders. That's also true. Washington does like their washed-up defenders. Cardinals are searching for edge. Yes, I did bring up the Cardinals, bro. I brought up the Cardinals. The Lions, someone opposite Adrian, that line would be crazy. They do still have Zadarius Smith under contract, so I think they feel like Zadarius is their number 2, if I'm not mistaken. I do think that he could go there, like, if they want to cut Zadarius Smith, or if they just want to add another guy on top of that. The Lions have enough money to get it done. That's just one I didn't include because it felt like on paper they already have their 1 and their 2. So I didn't really include them because I feel like the most money will go to the corner position for them. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked by that. I definitely feel like that's a possibility for sure. Eagles, I just don't see it. As much as Howie Roseman loves defensive linemen, I just don't see it. I think part of me is saying that because Nick Bosa and the Niners hate the Eagles so much, I just don't see his brother going to that team. I know that's a weird reason, but I'm just throwing that out there. I also feel like, again, in Vic Fangio's style and that scheme, I don't know if Bosa is the best fit there at this point in his career. I don't know. The Patriots, I'm a Patriots fan. I'd love to put them on this list. I don't think Bosa will want to go to the Patriots. It's East Coast, somewhere he's never been, not in college, not in the pros. It's cold weather. It's not a particularly talented team. It is an inspiring coach. You got Mike Vrabel. I'm not sure if there are ties to Mike Vrabel in any way, shape, or form from Mike Vrabel's days at Ohio State, being that Mike Vrabel was a coach there and also was a player there. That might be a reason if there are any ties at all. But I do feel like Vrabel was already in Houston by that time. So I don't think there are any ties, but I could be wrong. I'm sorry for the layout, guys. I'm sorry for the BR app. I'm not in charge of that, bro. I don't have anything to do with that, bro. I'm sorry if you guys are having problems. Bernardo likes the Niners. Tommy likes the Bears. All right. Packers, since they missed out on Max Crosby. Nobody was ever getting Max Crosby. Let's be real. They're trying to get Myles Garrett. Yeah, they could. Bosa is the only free agent left besides Khalil Mack. Yeah, I brought up the Packers. I think the Packers are in the top 5. If I had to list them in order, I'd probably go Niners first, Bengals second, Bills third, Packers fourth, or maybe Packers third, Bills fourth. That's interchangeable. 5th would probably be Cowboys. I'd probably throw the Commanders 6th, and then the Cardinals 7th, and then I think everybody else after that. The Eagles, the Lions, the Bears, the Patriots, all the teams that might offer him a contract. Where do you want to see him go? The Niners. The Niners. I want to see him play with Nick. I like the Niners. They're kind of like my NFC team too. I just think it would be very awesome to see him in that defense with his brother. I just think that would be a great story. I think that would be a lot of fun. And I think he would actually play really well there. So that would be my favorite spot for him. You like the sign behind my head. Okay, I appreciate that, man. Smith's leg, Alex Smith's leg says Bengals, Bills, Ravens, Commanders. Ravens, yeah, they'd be on the deeper list for me. I don't see the Jets, bro. I don't see the Jets. Snipe says Browns. Browns the only appeal would be the Ohio connection. That would be the only appeal, in my opinion. Do the Niners have enough cap space? I believe so. I mean, if you're just looking up NFL cap space right now, I guess it depends what they do with Purdy. But the Niners, on paper, have $33 million in cap space. They're $33 million above. So, and I don't think Joey is going to be a huge money thing. I don't know. I could be wrong. This is at least what over the cap says, 33 million. Let's check Sport Track. Let's see if that's any different. Yeah, they have something similar. So they can move money around though. So I don't know. Like, money can always be moved around, but Joey Bosa, I think he'll get like a 1-year deal, guys. I think he'll get like a 1-year deal, like around 10 million. Like, I don't think it's going to be crazy or anything like that. Probably more than like what Floyd got for the Niners last year, but something similar, like a similar contract, a 1 or 2 year deal. Yeah, I'm definitely considering cap space. I definitely consider cap space every time I do my landing spots for sure. All right, guys, I think I'm going to end it. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in and listening to me. Like I said, Joey Bosa is still a good player. When he's been on the field, good, productive player. 39 pressures last year. Did play more games last year. 5 sacks, was sent to the Pro Bowl at the end of the day. But he has not been the same player since 2021. He has fallen off due to injuries. But if he can stay healthy, find the right fit for himself, both personally and on the field, you could see this be a bargain ad that pays off massively. Because Joey Bosa at his best is a dominant force on the football field. And he's only 30. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, The Bottom Line View. All right. And don't forget to follow me on the BR app. I'm here all the time breaking news. We'll see you later. Peace, guys.